I like to think of Dot as an experiment in vector journalism. It's a very simple business model that we have. Every day you get one high quality story from us, which could be across a range of topics. And our USP is that the article or the story that you get from us would be very friendly and accessible.
I'm Naman Pandey, and in this episode, featured not expert is Anugrah Agnihotri. Anugrah is the founder of Dot, which, as you'll see, is a very fresh and unique take on online journalism. Anugrah quit his job as a consultant at BCG after his MBA to dive into his founder journey full time.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but a lot of the groundwork happened when I was still at BCG.
You called out the All Eyes on Rafa movement on social media because probably everybody and their grandma has heard of that.
If I have to choose between who is reading my news versus who is paying for my news, I'll obviously choose the latter. From day one, we were very clear that the person who is consuming our news is the one who will pay for it.
Do you actually think news can ever truly be completely unbiased?
Experts are doing more harm than good. They usually gatekeep their domain.
We go over everything that goes into launching and scaling an internet news company. The business model, operations, pricing, marketing. Indeed, Anugrah was extremely generous in terms of being completely transparent about the good, the bad, and the ugly bits of his journey.
I think it's just that artificial divide that we have created, that Hindi-speaking audience is not smart enough.
In line with our theme of learning from somebody just 2 steps ahead instead of an expert, my goal with this episode is to highlight what it takes to start a news company without any formal background in journalism. This is the Ready Set Do podcast, and subscribe for weekly episodes featuring not experts. And now, without any further ado, here's Anugrah. Welcome to the Ready Set Do podcast, where we learn from journeys of not experts who are just 2 steps ahead of us. Anugrah, welcome.
Thank you, Naman. Thanks for having me.
So excited to dive in here. Let's kick off with what is now, a little bit of a tradition on this podcast. What is your most controversial opinion / hot take around the, we'll just say news media industry, leave it intentionally open-ended for now.
Okay. So you're starting with a tough one.
I like, this is just the best days to start, immediately shocks people into, being present. Not that you weren't already present. But
yeah. So honestly, Naman, I think Dot is in a space where all of us have at least some vague idea about what is wrong with news. So if I think the controversial take would be if I say news media is doing what they expected to do. So if you ask me, I think one major area which is problematic is the content itself.
Okay.
Which is the more apparent or the obvious mistakes or the failings that we see of media. So stuff like news being biased, being sensationalist, it having a lot of clickbaits, etc. So all of these are the more obvious symptoms that you see. But the bigger problem is the cause of these problems, which is the business model itself.
Right.
I think a lot of us do not appreciate that these surface level problems, they are stemming from something much deeper.
Right. And just to clarify, that's just the fact that this is a business. Like, this business exists to make money, and if they don't get enough clicks, that means less revenue and therefore bad. So they're not optimizing for telling the truth anymore. They're just optimizing for clicks at this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So news apps are less about news, they are more about engagement now, which is coming from the business model that you just mentioned. They're optimizing for clicks, they're optimizing for views. There's nothing wrong with building a sustainable, viable business. It is just that when the interests of the business is not aligned with the interest of the users, then the problem arises.
So we'll be diving into how Dot tackles that problem in just a bit here. But before we get there, do you want to share with our listeners your version, obviously, of what Dot is and why it exists?
Sure. So I like to think of Dot as an experiment in better journalism. I know it's a very loaded definition. I'll explain what.
I like it.
So we are trying to change the way people consume news, and more importantly, the way news is produced by businesses. But to give you a very simple explanation, Dot is trying to make it easier for us to understand the wide, wonderful world around us. And the way we do it is very simple. Frankly, it's a very simple business model that we have. Every day you get one high quality story from us, which could be across a range of topics. It could be around politics, business, economy, sports, science, technology, culture. It could be anything that is relevant to you.
Mhm.
Right? And our USP is that the article or the story that you get from us would be very friendly and accessible. One of the findings that I got when I started out Dot, when I did initial market research, I realized that not everybody knows everything about everything. It's not possible for everybody to know everything.
Mm.
But news or traditional news media expects you to have that background or that context when they write something.
Correct.
So I'll give you the example of the story that went out today. We wrote about Russia-Ukraine war, and news outlets, they expect you to know what the Soviet Union is. They expect you to know why it failed, why it fell. They expect you to know what NATO is. And then, but I don't think that is a very reasonable expectation.
I agree. Yeah.
Right? And a lot of folks are uh, turned off when they read an article like this simply for the reason that they had no background information.
Mm.
And honestly, it's not their fault for not liking news. And I love to give this metaphor a lot, this analogy of using news as food for the mind. So, just like how we all need a well balanced diet, it's very important for everybody to consume a bit of everything in terms of news. Uh, so, if you don't like Loki, the equivalent could be not liking politics, for example. It is
Mm.
still important for you to consume political news. The onus lies on news makers like me to make sure that we dish out a very palatable and a tasty preparation of Loki video.
That's very fascinating. One quick follow up on that is, so you mentioned you have one story per day across various topics. So is that, so you mean today if I open the app, I'll find just one news for politics, just one for maybe world affairs, maybe one for media. Is it like that, or?
No, you'll find one story per day, which could be across a range of topics. But for that day, there is just
Oh,
one news.
I,
And I'll just take a minute to explain why we chose that model.
yeah, I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Uh, I think not more than 4 to 5 big incidents happen in a week that require your undivided attention.
Mm.
Anything beyond that is just fluff. Uh, Traditional media or even your TV channels or newspapers, they are incentivized to keep running something 24/7 to make sure that they fill all pages of the newspaper.
Yeah.
But in our case, that is not the case. We would much rather have you spend 5 minutes and understand one story fully rather than you spending just a minute on 20 stories but not understanding anything about.
So, you know, that it's funny you mentioned that because that reminds me of this very famous, at least famous in my circles, quote by Nawal Ravikant. He says, actually, it's just a tweet, one of his many, many tweets. Are you familiar by chance with his work?
Yes,
at
yes,
all?
I've read this.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
I'll
So you'll probably know this.
I will.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll probably know this, but he says that the job of the media is to make the world's problems your problem, which is, it sounds like what you were kind of saying. But on the flip side of that, the thing that gives me a little bit of pause is that if that is how this game is structured, then do you see that as a potential problem for Dot, in the sense that you are not trying to make all of the world's problems your readers' problems, but apparently that is like a success formula when it comes to that? So I guess there's a trade off there, right? So I'm just wondering how you balance that trade.
I mean, honestly, uh, I don't think the entire word's problem is your problem. You as
Because
in,
the media's
my,
job is to try to do that, is the whole, yeah.
yeah, I
They're
understand.
trying to do that.
But let me again try to think from the perspective of a consumer of news. Let's say, Naman, you want to consume news.
Yeah.
Is it relevant for you to understand what is currently happening in Somalia? Maybe not,
Problem.
unless it is
Yeah.
like a very big event. Or would you care about what just happened in Bhopal today? You might not.
I didn't even know something happened.
So the point is, when I step aside and when I try to look at this problem from the perspective of the news consumer rather than the news producer,
Mhm.
the answer that I got is, hey, I just want to understand what is happening that is relevant to me. Of course, that is debatable. I have to take a judgment call as to what is
Sure.
relevant for most of my readers. That is a question that I can tackle later. Uh, but then, is it important for me to dish out everything that is happening in the world? Maybe not.
True. Yeah. It just leads to more anxiety and doesn't actually even solve anything. You just feel so overwhelmed at the end of it. You're like,
I
what
mean, at
did
the
I?
end, Naman, we still have the monkey brain with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only so much that we can fit into it.
True.
And much of the news today is just designed to sadden you, shock you, surprise you, rather than to inform you. And I always like to say that the one emotion that I want to leave my readers with at the end of every story is awe.
Mm.
It's not shock or anything else, it is awe.
It's just, yeah.
Even when we write about something that is very grim like war, rather than focusing on the casualties, we'll focus more upon why is it happening? What is the uh, bigger reason behind it?
Right. That's very fascinating. Yeah, definitely. So many, layers just over there to for us to unpack. But just to take a step back, can you do you mind walking us kind of through your journey, just not with Dot, but up until the moment you decided to start Dot? I know you went to. I mean, I'll let you say like completed, but just for broad strokes for our listeners, I know you have an MBA, and then I know you were a consultant at BCG. So really curious to hear from you how you started there and kind of ended up, with this type of stuff, which is it just feels kind of far removed from consulting, but maybe
It is a rather unconventional choice. But, I actually get that a lot. So, like you mentioned, I was working with BCG for close to 2.5, 3 years, and I decided to take the plunge and start this full time.
and before that, where did you get your MBA? Sorry, just
So I studied at XLRI Jamshedpur.
okay, awesome, got it, nice,
Yeah. And even before that, I worked as a software developer. And even before that, I completed my engineering in computer science. So,
amazing,
again, none of this experience is close to what I'm doing now.
yeah,
Right. So I chose to take this plunge into entrepreneurship. There are two parts to it. First is why did I leave BCG and why did I become a journalist? Answering the first one is very straightforward. I had reached a point in my career where I felt that, I mean, it's good to advise people, consult them, but it's better to build something yourself. And I wanted to be hands on and do something of my own. And that is when I decided to make this switch. I know it's an unconventional choice in the sense that BCG pays you well.
yeah,
It sets you up for a very good career. Uh, but then, I mean, like I said, I'd reached that point where I had to make that plunge. And then the second part is the more interesting part, especially which would interest our listeners, is why did a guy enter a field like journalism?
right,
Uh, and the answer is journalism is not rocket science. It's quite similar to I mean I was a quizzer. I used to love reading a lot. I used to love collecting a lot of trivia. I was a coder, so I loved building a product. I thought it was a very good mix of the two things, and that is what led me to this.
yeah,
And this particular problem had been ailing me for over a decade.
wow, really, wow,
It had, and seeing that this problem was not being adequately fixed by anybody, I thought, why not do this?
Uh, yeah. So I was just taking a moment there to, um, you know, understand what you just said there. So I guess what was your approach like when it came to the actual building of this? So you have your value proposition very clearly defined. No one's doing that. I kind of had a similar journey with this podcast, but obviously that is way easier to do than to, actually have an app that needs to have a certain process, that needs to have, stories going out every day. So can you walk me through just kind of your journey with materializing this, great, wonderful idea that only existed in your brain up until that point?
Yeah. So I think the main focus of Dot is the one story that we write every day. Everything else is just supplementary. It just helps it out.
Yep.
So the app and website, it's good to have. It uh, legitimizes the business, so to speak. Yeah. But frankly, I would say almost 80 to 90% of my day goes into writing this story. A lot of the groundwork for app was done while I was still working. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but a lot of the groundwork happened when I was still at BCG. Um, and then it's mostly on an autopilot mode now. Once in a while, I have to step in for some bug fixes. But then the star of the show is the story. I spend most of my time just reading about stuff, researching, writing, tweaking, making multiple drafts, talking to a lot of experts, getting their opinion before the entire story goes out.
And so did like so you actually built the app yourself, or did you have kind of a small team that you outsourced that part to? Or you were just that hands-on that you were just able to build it by yourself?
I did build it by myself. And I know I use the term we a lot, but there is no team. It's a solopreneur endeavor that
Yeah.
taken on. So yes, I did build the app myself. And even now for most of the writing and researching stuff, it is mostly me. We do have a few interns who help out. Then there's a panel of experts, people that I reach out to.
Yeah.
For let's say if I'm writing a story on a legal case, I have a lawyer friend whom I reach out to understand the nuances and the jargons that they use.
Yeah. That's very interesting because when I was looking at when I first came across your page on LinkedIn and such, all of your branding, I must say, definitely stood out to me. It looked like I don't know how you're able to do that stuff just like by yourself, because it was really impressive. And it's something that's been on top of my mind of late, where I've just kind of gotten obsessed a little bit with really good branding, like fonts that work really well together, color palettes, etc., logos, you name it, right? And it just like dot entire kind of branding. It's so fresh. It seems so clean. It kind of really stuck out. Maybe I can flash it up. Can you tell me the website so I can like quickly, throw it up here for our listeners to see as well?
Do you want me to put it on the chat?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that works. I just wanted to, yeah, quickly show people what I'm talking about. So
So it is bot-dot.com.
yeah, and as I show this, if you don't mind talking through kind of, yeah, like this particular graphic here, it's like, I don't know, it just looks so clean to me. Um, and actually, specifically, if I go browse stories, like it's, I don't know, you get what I'm saying, that though, right? Oh, on me to sign in, but yeah, how did all of this come to be? I guess like all of this really cool looking,
Yeah.
template.
I know I think the word that you're looking for, Naman, is minimalist.
There.
Uh, and honestly, I think it's also because it was just one person working on it. So that is how it came out to be minimalist. But also, it is a very conscious choice of not keeping it cluttered.
Mhm.
I think we are so used to being overstimulated by
Yeah,
so many animations and flashy things on your screen that minimalism is going out of fashion.
true.
Uh,
Yeah.
so again, it was a very conscious choice of keeping things that way. And I think the our technology or our platform or the user experience is one big differentiator from traditional media.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly the core point here. Yep. Hmm.
So let's say you go to any website like The Hindu, Money Control, India Today, whatever website that you're using, even if it is a very well researched, well meaning article that is out there, you would be distracted by uh, a pop up in the corner, one clickbaity headline somewhere else, something flashy comes up on the middle of the screen. So it's very difficult to take something seriously once you come across an experience like that. So from day one, we were very clear that our experience needs to be, it should feel like an extension of what we are writing. It should feel seamless that way.
Yeah.
And frankly, throughout the app and the website, there are numerous small features that we have sprinkled that bring out this humane experience side of our offering. I'll give you a few examples.
Yeah.
Uh, so you just flashed the sign up screen for me.
Yeah, I can pull it back up one second.
So that is the first thing that somebody sees when they come on our app or website. And if you notice, there's a small call out over there. You just click on any of the cards.
Yeah.
So if you notice, there's a call out which says, "Why is a phone number required?"
True.
Yeah. So we go into details and tell you why we need your phone number in the first place.
Hmm.
And
I
for people who are geeks and nerds who are watching this, they would uh,
one-way hash. Yeah.
yeah, they'll appreciate that we're using something known as a one-way hash,
Yeah.
which means that we take your phone number and convert it into a unique code, and then we use this unique code to identify you. without having to store your phone number with us.
Right.
Which means even if we wanted to, we could not sell your number or spam it.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean these are tiny things that we have done.
No, they matter. No, for sure. And I love how before signing up, you also have a way of understanding kind of what was
few articles,
few articles.
even
Yeah.
sign up. And then right before on that screen, you would see that there's something for terms and service and privacy policy.
Yeah.
Usually
Noises that.
that is
Yeah.
usually that is something that people just overlook.
True. Yeah. For
But
sure.
for a company like Dot, which is priding on making things simpler and easier to explain, we started with our own privacy policy and terms of service. So if you go to that page, you will see that stuff is very simply explained. We are using TLDRs, we are using bullet points for you to understand what data we collect from you, what is it that you can expect from us, and what is it that we expect from you.
You mean this part? Sorry, where was that part? The TLDR?
I think it comes right below the send OTP button. You could just click anywhere.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Terms of service. Yeah. I see. No, I mean, this is really cool.
And that is a very good example that you picked. If you could just go back to that infographic. So again, I tend to think from the point of view of a consumer. And I myself am I'm a consumer of this app. So I try to answer all the intrusive thoughts and the questions that I have in my head. So one question is, why is West Bank called West Bank when it is in the east? Something like what happens with West Bengal. So there's an explanation for it right above this infographic. Or something like, hey, I've heard of Bethlehem. Isn't this the place which is the birthplace of Jesus? So where does it lie on the map?
I also like how you called out because of Rafa, you called out it was the All Eyes on Rafa movement on social media because probably everybody and their grandma by at this point has heard of that.
Yeah.
Right. So that was also a really neat touch right there. And so did you just teach yourself this? Like that part is the other really cool part of this for me. Like this, all of this graphic kind of design, these arrows, um, like all of it. And I know there's more stuff here. Like this one's even more detailed. So do you have a background in this? How are you making these? Like I'm just blown away.
I mean, my background is in engineering and MBA. Right. Yeah, I know I'm not an engineer. What's going on? You have to teach yourself all of this. But frankly, we are in an age where there are so many free tools available that you can learn all of this yourself. Yeah, it's so good. We are on this podcast tool called Riverside. I mean, I'm sure that you are not a professional audio mixer or whatever is the term for it, but you taught yourself how to operate the software.
No, it's a good point. And like the reason that caught my attention further was, just when you do this type of stuff, you have to make thumbnails on YouTube and you can have the greatest video ever made by humankind. And if your thumbnail sucks, it will not get views. It's just the reality of it. So yeah, so
that is one reason why we have our own platform, Naman. Right. Because we don't want to play the game where you have to try to game the algorithm to come up on the top. So that is why we do not use Substack or we do not use Medium. We use our own platform. So it gives us the independence to write whatever we want. It will not be taken down. Although we are not into investigative journalism and we do not write stuff that is very controversial, but it's always good to have your own platform. And then the other thing is that you are not bounded by the algorithms or the way these social media work. Which is a very
not at the mercy of any algorithms, for sure. And I want to get into marketing in just a little bit here, but before that, I feel like we have just a little bit, bigger fish to fry, which is that do you actually think news can ever truly be completely unbiased? I mean, clearly you do, right? But can you confirm for me?
No, honestly, on the completely, I don't feel it. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think we are not asking the right question. The question is not, is it biased or is it unbiased? Frankly, any news outlet will push out something that is biased. It's just the degree of biasness will vary. So there is one kind of biasness which is, I would say, a more conscious form or a more blatant form of biasness, where you have a propaganda or an agenda to push onto your readers.
Yeah.
The other is a more subtle or unconscious or subconscious form of biasness, which creeps up because we are all born in different ways, and we are all brought up in different ways. My upbringing has some influence on what I think about the world. So rather than trying to hide that biasness, I would rather reveal my biases and let the readers know where I'm coming from.
So how do you do that exactly?
So one big part of it is our business model. Our business model accounts for the first kind of biasness to be not there. Uh, and let me go back to what I began with talking about uh, the interests of the reader not matching with the interest of the business. It's a very straightforward logic. Journalists like me, we need to earn a living.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, somebody needs to pay for the news. If it is not you who is the consumer or the reader of the news, somebody else will step in. And that somebody else is most likely going to be a sponsor or an advertiser.
Yeah.
And that will put me in this difficult situation where I have to prioritize their interests over your interests.
Makes sense. Yep.
If I have to choose between who is reading my news versus who is paying for my news, I'll obviously choose the latter. So from day one, we were very clear that the person who is consuming our news, who is reading or listening to our news, is the one who will pay for it. Just digressing for a bit, I said the word listening because we also have audio narrations.
Yeah, no, I've
Uh,
known. Yeah. Which is really cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so it is a very clear standpoint that we have taken that we will not show ads. The blatant outright ads as well as the more hidden ads or sponsored posts, we never show them.
Really?
Uh, I mean, just go back and think of the times when you were in school. Think of the time, assume that you were flipping through your history book and your teacher just explained something about exploitation and slavery. And as you flip through the pages, on the next page, you see a full page ad about fast fashion or diamond industry or some industry which is prone to exploiting the workers.
Yeah.
How seriously would you take that book or that lesson?
It's a very good point. Yeah.
Eh, So, if we do not accept it in our textbooks, why have we normalized accepting it in our news? But then the other side is you need to keep it truly affordable. Otherwise, people are not going to pay for it. So, for now, we charge 59 rupees per month, which turns out to be a rupee or two every day.
I mean, that feels very, very reasonable to me. Yeah.
And then we have a generous 1 month free trial for you to understand our principles, our way, and our brand of journalism before you decide to uh, take the plunge and come into it full time.
Makes sense. So I want to hone into what you said about that you're being upfront with your viewers slash listeners that you do have a bias. So I guess how do you account for that? So say I'm your newest, subscriber. I go in, start my free trial with the full expectation to, kind of continue all the way. I really like your product. I'm sold. When is it that I'm actually exposed to the bias that you have inherently? Is that something that you call out specifically, or is that just something that's implied?
I don't call it out specifically. It is implied and it does come across. If you are a very keen reader, you would see that. But
Okay.
then I force myself to look at things from a different perspective.
I see.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah, exactly. An example would be wonderful here. Yeah.
So last week we wrote a story upon Trump's latest executive order in which he forbid transgender players from participating in women's sports.
Correct. Yes, I did see that. Yeah.
And a lot of us, we have inherent biases towards people from the LGBTQ. It could be either, you could be on either side of the spectrum. You could be pro, you could be against. And I also have some bias which might have come across in the story. So what I did is uh, at XLRA, we had a committee right at Excel. So I reached out to 10 folks over there. I asked them to go through the article and point out where I have erred or things that
Okay.
I have subconsciously or unconsciously made a mistake in. And then I made amends.
Interesting.
So, for example, a lot of us, including me, I mean, I'm guilty of this. We do not understand the difference between sex and gender. These are two different terms.
Right.
Even for those who understand, they might not understand the nuances between transgender and intersex. These are two different terms.
Yep.
So a lot of bias, it does creep up. The only thing is One is your business model holds you in check, and then the other thing is you go out of the way and try to make it as neutral or as inclusive of all perspectives as possible.
That's very interesting, actually. And I'm so glad I brought this up because it almost feels like you have, in a way, I don't know if this is the right word, but almost democratized news publishing. Because when somebody reads that article, it's not just your views, it's also the other 10 people that you had it reviewed by. And I'm obviously hoping, and I'm pretty sure you would have chosen, I don't know if you did that intentionally, but hopefully some of them had, views across the spectrum of the, at least
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
political.
It does happen. Otherwise, go back to the
Right.
point that you mentioned about democratizing, because frankly, we are not there. I wouldn't pat my back and I would say we are there.
Yeah.
Because it's quite obvious to me that collectively all the readers of Dot know more than me. Individually, I might know more than what they know about one particular topic, but collectively, they would definitely know more than me. So, and how do I involve them into the process of creating the story in the first place? And then, secondly, afterwards, how do they hold me accountable or responsible for what I've written?
Yeah.
So honestly, I am not entirely there. One way of doing it is trying to get feedback as quickly as possible.
Right.
So at the end of every story, we have uh, there's a thumbs up, thumbs down button in which you can
Yeah.
simply
I
prove.
thought it said, put it on my wall. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. So that phrase actually changes every day,
Oh, interesting.
and that's because we do not want you to have blind spots, and I mean, we don't want you to start missing out on that, or you trying to just cut that off. So there is a different term every day so that you're forced to look at it again.
That's so cool.
And once you tap on that, let's say you tap on the thumbs down button, there are few pre-filled tags for you to select from. So you can pick up things like, I didn't like the length, it was too lengthy for me, it was too short, the topic was not relevant, you were biased, it was boring, stuff like that.
I see.
So that is one tiny way in which I get feedback from readers. But then again, still a long way to go.
Do you eventually have plans of converting some of your readers that are interested in this type of thing into your, I don't know what's the word, but council, news council, if that makes sense? Like, is that something you've thought about, or does it not make sense at all?
I've actually thought a lot about this problem. We're
Okay.
also working with NIT Warangal. There's a student club over there, and they're trying to solve this problem. They're helping me out with this. How do we democratize media more? Now, the problem with the suggestion that you gave is it creates two groups.
Interesting.
There is a group of the counselors who supposedly have more knowledge or more say in creating the story versus the consumers who are not part of the council.
I see. It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if that is the right solution or not because democracy has its own problems.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
just because everybody gets to vote does not mean that they're making the right educated choice. I think it was Socrates who said that voting is a skill, it's not a right.
Yeah. He also said not everybody should get to vote.
Not everybody should get to. I mean, I am not saying anything for or against it. I'll refrain confidently.
Yeah. No, that was implied. No, I'm just, yeah.
But not everybody is qualified to talk about new.
Just so I understand, the ethics and principles of this is still that for the user, they're still being fed news that is not meant to be curated by any sponsors. It's the truth, or at least it's in practice, it's trying to be the closest version of the truth. Would you kind of agree with that assessment in general?
I'll say it's closer to facts rather than using the word truth. Truth is a very loaded term. Frankly, there is your version of truth, there could be my version of the truth. And truth is very subtle, it could be layered, it could be evolving. And so I'll refrain from using the word truth, but I try to go as close as to the source of truth, which shows up in the way I research. So one way is to, let's say if you're talking about a scandal or something has happened in business, one way is to go to the company's website and look at the statement that they have put out. Or if you're talking about geopolitics or you're talking about politics or uh, a political party, go to their website and look at a statement that they have put out, look at their press conference. That is being close to the source of truth. 1 degree less connected to the source of truth is going to news agencies like ANI or Reuters.
Yeah.
And then if you go another degree farther away, you end up with YouTube channels or newspapers and news channels.
Yeah.
So by that time, it tends to become a game of Chinese whispers.
Hmm.
So something else was sent, but something else was heard and passed on.
Yeah, I was originally going to ask you to help, untangle for me the difference between truth and fact. But when you said press conference, that made it immediately clear because I feel like press conferences are definitely not worried about telling the truth. You're right. Like it's just a way of, usually for the most part, if there is a scandal, it's what they want to put out there, which probably has nothing to do with the truth. Right.
Absolutely. And that is where you have to use your own intelligence to think
Yeah.
of it. So I'll give you another example. We all know about the Kumbh Mela that is happening in Prayagraj. Uh, a lot of newspapers, both international and Indian, they claim that this edition is a special edition. It's happening once in 144 years.
Right, because Mahakumbh, that's why it's called the Mahakumbh. Yeah.
So it happens after 12 cycles of 12 years. This is the Maha.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't take it as at face value. I decided to just do some simple maths calculations. If you go through some older newspaper clippings, or if you even go through some news websites, they tell you that even the 2013 edition wasn't a special once in 144-year edition. If you go back, even the 2001 edition is claimed to be the special edition.
I see.
Yeah. I dug up a government documentary which claims that I think the 1882 edition was the special once in 144 edition.
I see.
So to your point, just because somebody is claiming this as facts, even if it is coming from a press conference or from a press release, does not mean that it is the truth or it is the right fact. It could be misleading. So you have to use your own judgment at times.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. And I don't think I would have ever stopped to consider that truth and fact could be two different things. So definitely learned something new today. Moving forward, definitely wanted to, pick your brain about your actual writing process. So as I'm sure you're aware, writing what, like, for example, the article that I just pulled up on like the Israel stuff, it's very hard to actually write anything that is engaging to read and that people can enjoy reading, whether or not it's in the context of a news article. It can be like a LinkedIn post, it can be your caption on your whatever post on Instagram, right? Writing is very hard. So I'm looking for any maybe resources that help you in trying to become a good writer, or maybe, yeah, just trying to understand how you honed your writing skills after, all the research was done. You have all the facts. Now it's time to pen it down on paper. What's your process like for that piece?
Just give me a second. I'm just thinking about this.
Yeah. So I know this was not.
No, it's a good question. I want to give a very good answer. I don't want to just blabber.
Please take your time. Yeah.
My favorite author is Ruskin Bond. The way he writes it's so effortless. It's so simple. It almost makes you feel like writing is a very simple thing, as opposed to reading, I don't know, Enid Blyton or Jordan Marat, any of them. They write English in a more convoluted way.
Right.
But I love Ruskin Bond for his simplicity. And I think I tried to imbibe his style of writing into the way I write. And we have already discussed this before, but I love to write by the side. I mean, most of our viewers would not know that I love writing short stories. And
That's so cool.
as far away from journalism as you would imagine, I write about
Like all of your interests are at like just the opposite ends of every spectrum.
it is. So I write short stories about horror, supernatural. Yeah, so it's very far from what I write for a living now. But then the principles remain largely the same. I want to make it as simple as possible. Take away all the fluff that is there. Leave you with words that are so simple, so effortless that it's very easy for you to consume. Because no reader tells me, hey, I wish this was a bit more difficult to understand. Nobody says that. Everybody wants things to be as simple as possible, which means you have to keep it very engaging, very flowing. Uh, you need to throw in a few jokes or a bit of humor.
Even when dealing with such difficult topics, which just that feels like such a difficult skill to, actually exercise. Because you talked about war here, like this stuff is serious, but yet you still kind of have to not lose the viewer, which is, yeah, it's such an interesting problem to solve in my.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, and it is a very underrated skill, especially with the rise of
Yeah.
Chat GPT and the likes. It's very easy to ask uh, OpenAI or ChatGPT to write everything for you.
Yeah.
Uh, some might say that writing is a dying skill with the rise of uh, Gen AI, but
Mhm.
I mean, I have a very different opinion to that.
Do you feel tempted sometimes to use AI or not really?
I use it at the final step, and we are very open about it. We have written it
Just to spell check and stuff like
to
that?
spell check just to make sure that there are no grammar mistakes, to make sure that the tone can be perhaps evened out if required. But like the
Interesting.
first draft and the second draft is always written by hand. It's written
Interesting.
by a human. It's very easy to pick out sentences that are written by Gen AI.
Yeah,
It's very easy.
I agree. Yeah, it just feels so lifeless and it's just the most dull, the most drab, gray sentence you've ever read. For the most part, I know now there's some AI tools that you can circumvent that a little bit. Like you can upload all of your writing samples and it will try its best to match that. But still, I just feel like, I mean, if I were to put myself in your shoes, that would just feel wrong to me. Like, what's the point of anything at that? Like, if I'm just doing that, then might as well just start having sponsors, right? Why have any morals or, well, not morals, but why have any principles that, you know, are not even worth
I still look at
like,
AI as an aid. I don't look at it as an adversary.
yeah, no, for sure.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that it is immoral to use. Even in journalism, it's not immoral to use. But then at the end of the day, your users are paying for something that is more handmade.
Right.
It has the human touch.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if you could just as a test, have your article ready, just like an A/B testing, and you could have maybe any of the AIs come up with like you can ask it to make it as unbiased as possible on that given topic, and maybe you could then share that with a control group to find out which they rated or which they found to be more helpful. Like across various metrics, you could have like different measures for most engaging, most unbiased, most informative, whatever the case might be. And then you could do some back-end analysis to understand what it did better, and then maybe try to manually incorporate those things. I don't know,
Very
just
interesting.
spitballing
It's worth giving a try.
for sure. And so from there, so from what we've discussed, you've mentioned that it's like the whole thing depends on paying users, right? So I'm trying to understand what efforts you've spent into marketing in various ways to attract users to your platform and how that part of the journey has been. Because again, it's just the nature of these things. You could have a really good product, but if you don't market it well, people just won't even know that it exists and, it doesn't get the rewards that it deserves. So how do you go about dealing with that?
And Naman, I actually learned it the hard way. The point that we did mention that even if you build a very good product, it does not sell itself. We are prone to thinking that if you build something very good, people will come, build and
Yeah,
income.
Graham Potter said that. Right? I think he said, "Build it and they will come." I think that's like a very famous quote.
But unfortunately, that does not happen in the real world.
Yeah.
Um, and to be very honest, marketing is not my strongest suit. I'm very poor at it. My wife, Saloni, she does a lot of heavy lifting and helps me out by the side in marketing. And for Dot, the challenge is because we have put so many constraints on us with principles and ethics. We can't go overboard with marketing. There are a few things that we can't do. For example,
Interesting. Yeah.
flash pricing, for example, right? I'm sure you would have seen products which are, let's say, they sell for 100,
I see what you mean.
they'll market up to 200, they'll slash it out, and then they'll say at a discount, selling at. We can't do any of that nonsense. I mean, so it puts me in a tricky place. Uh, I'm not trying to find an excuse, but I think we need to do a lot more in terms of marketing. Uh, LinkedIn has been a very good channel for us.
I
We
am. I
we
believe
spend
it.
a lot of people from LinkedIn coming to our app, uh, and I just think that people on LinkedIn, they love to care about news, or at least they pretend to care about news.
Yeah.
So it helps us
Yeah.
that way.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Instagram hasn't worked well for us, which is quite obvious because over there you are competing with get ready with me videos, you're competing with memes, competing with dance reels. It's very difficult to grab eyeballs.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. The thing that's tricky with, I feel like, with just Instagram in particular is that it becomes at the end of the day a purely volume game. Like
It does.
if you pump out enough volume, it will reach the right people for sure. But that threshold point, unfortunately, is usually very high for, as you said, anything that's not get ready with me
Yeah.
or all those type of stuff. No, but
We are not ready to play that quantity game. We'll always choose quality over quantity.
absolutely no, that's for sure. And then what about just stuff like running ads and such on meta platforms? Is that something that you've tried? Because I feel like I get ads for so many news stuff, like so much. So I don't know, is that something that you've considered or not?
We ran few ads on LinkedIn. We got free credits. We didn't pay for it. We ran some ads.
How was that? How was that?
Decentish. I think the CTR was around 5% or something. I think reasonable.
Right. Yeah, that's
Uh,
not bad.
I mean, a lot of people would consider me to be hypocritical when I say that I don't allow ads on Dot. But why are you thinking of putting out ads for Dot? I mean, I'm not averse to ads as such. I have no problem with ad as a model. I'm very grateful that Google Maps, for example, is free because it has
Nice. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a conflict of interest in any way for you to put ads out.
it is not.
Don't.
It is not. And frankly, social media it's an ad platform. It is nothing else.
That's true. Yeah. We live in an attention economy, right? And I also, I didn't, it just didn't come up, I guess. I didn't, so I couldn't share this. But what you said earlier about your wife, Saloni, I believe, who was helping you market, she actually had commented on one of my friends, Anand Chajar, he's like a study abroad creator. She had commented about Dot just on a random post of his. And actually, that's how I first came across, your platform here. So I don't.
One thing, Stephanie, you good job.
No, truly, yeah. I just thought you would like to know that. So yeah,
It
it's
is hard work. It is a lot of grunt work.
so much work. Yeah, it just. But when it works, it works. Like I'm the type of demographic. I don't know if I should say demographic, but person that is attracted to new novel ideas. If there's like a certain way of doing things that in a field that's run down and has been around since years, but if somebody has like a new fresh take to it, I'm immediately attracted to that. Like I immediately need to see what it is and whether or not it makes sense to me. So yeah, I mean it's hit or miss for
It
sure, but
maps. I was telling you yesterday also. I mean, there are a lot of parallels between the way you think and I think.
yeah, truly.
I love the concept of calling or inviting not experts to your podcast. I'm truly fully qualified to not be an expert. And
Yeah,
I I think we touched about this topic yesterday also when we talked about experts are doing more harm than good. They usually gatekeep their domain.
correct.
And if this happens with journalism a lot of journalists, they are so high up in their castle that they have no idea what consumers are really craving.
Yeah, and the other thing with that also is just how much intentional smearing goes on in like really big news media houses. Slightly tangential to this conversation, I guess, but just yesterday I think Brian Johnson had put on like this big thread on how he's being targeted by New York Times some reason. And his whole point was like, why are you doing this? Like, just go report news. You have such a huge, brand. So many
Yeah.
people subscribe for your stuff. How is it going to help you to come out with a random hit piece? It's nothing else. I don't know. Like, we can debate on that either way. But I just don't think
Exactly.
ever that.
You and me, we will never even get to know what happens behind the scenes in these big newsrooms. We have no idea what is happening.
But it's the incentives though. Like, why is that where their time is being spent for their journalists that probably make, I don't know, $100 an hour? Right? That feels wasteful to me. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So, and either way, what plans do you have for the future? Where do you see Dot in, I don't know, 2 years from now?
It's a good question. Let me think about.
If it can even be further out. I just said 2 years arbitrarily, or it can be even nearer. I don't know. I'm just looking for what plans are cooking in your head right now.
I mean, I'm more clear about what we don't need to do. Okay, there are few options that I can eliminate.
Yeah, yeah.
I get to hear from people that why do you not write 10 articles a day? Like you've already discussed. The very obvious, I'm not going down that road. I also hear from people who tell me that I've lost the ability to read for 3, 4, 5 minutes at a stretch. Would you be okay coming out with a digest, which is basically just an 80-word summary of the
Yeah.
news piece?
Yeah.
Again, not something that I would be comfortable doing, simply for the reason that it defeats the vision that I had in the past. Things that are relevant, that are of substance, they cannot be summarized into 80 words.
And they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be. They're going to hide more than what they're going to reveal, which is going to do a lot more harm. You might be better off than not even reading it in the first place.
Truly.
And there are apps which do this. I don't want to take the name. Everybody knows there's apps which is quite popular.
Yeah.
It's basically an advertisement app masquerading as a news app.
Exactly.
So I'm very clear that I don't want to do these two things. What I want to do is one is to go vernacular. Maybe this year, maybe next year. I don't know when that happens. And this also stems from a personal problem that I've seen. Back home in Jamshedpur, my parents, they consume the Hindi newspaper. And whatever problems that we have talked about with the English media, just amplify it by 100 times.
100%. Yeah.
You get the Hindi or any other local vernacular
Yeah.
newspaper. And I think this is a very artificial divide that has been created in society where you expect the better thing to be in English rather than in English, and it's rather than in Hindi. And it's not just news. Even something like cricket commentary, for example, you
Yeah.
you expect that the more nuanced commentary would be in English, and the more superficial one would be
Yeah, or more
Hindi.
jokey. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that they put, Navjot Singh Sidhu on that thing. But your point
And
is that
Sidhu is a fabulous English commentator, by the way.
he is. Yeah, that's so true.
There's a
Just for whatever reason, becomes a clown when he does like Hindi stuff. I don't know why he does that. It's like kind of annoying.
just that artificial divide that we have created, that Hindi speaking audience is not smart enough, maybe, or maybe they are
A very good point. Yeah.
craving substandard uh, substances.
Yeah. No, yeah, just like content. We can even just say content. I mean, even knowing English, when a child speaks English, we're automatically accustomed to think that, oh, that's a smart child. Right. But that has nothing to do with like English speaking abilities have nothing to do with smartness.
Absolutely.
You're very right. Yeah, it's like a problem for sure.
So that is a 1 year goal for us.
I see.
And maybe beyond that, we would like to go global. Maybe go into other countries. Yeah. So every week, let's say we come out with 5, 6, 7 articles. Half of them they're agnostic to a nationality. I mean, anybody could have read it and they would have still liked it.
True.
Few of them are very specific to India when we talk about politics in India, but otherwise anybody could consume it.
Mhm.
So maybe we go into a franchisee kind of a model in which somebody uses Dot's brand, our platform, our technology, and few articles which are relevant to them, and just build on top of it.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, both of those pathways almost feel natural. And yeah, I'm very excited to, see and follow along with what lies ahead for Dot. Final question before I let you go. And it's a bit of a misnomer because we have been talking about it kind of this whole time. But what are some things about being a solopreneur that you know now that you wish you knew when you had first started? And this is more so just from one solopreneur to another. I'm just really looking for tips here because, um, so yeah, anything that you say will be extremely helpful for sure.
I mean, I've just started 3 months back, so I really am not qualified enough to give you gyan at this point. You are way more experienced than me. Um, but one thing that I realized very quickly is that it's very easy to start, but just to keep going on, that is the more difficult bit. Uh, and, and there are good days and bad days, just as you would have in any corporate job. But when you're a solopreneur, the frequency of going up and down, it just increases, and even the amplitude goes up and down. So there are days when I feel that I've written my best piece. It's a masterpiece,
Right.
but it does not really do too well. That is a sad part. I mean, I would expect that it goes viral and people are talking about it, but that does not happen. But then there are days when some random stranger, a kind stranger, just drops by and writes a very thoughtful note saying that
Those are so good.
those are the moments that you live for.
Truly.
When somebody connects with the problem that you're trying to solve, they're as passionate about it as you are. They feel that the way Dot is trying to fix it is the right way, or is at least one of the right ways to do it.
No, 100%. Yeah, there's very few simple pleasures in life that are better than, just a stranger being like, hey, I came across your video. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for making it. That's it. And I just find myself smiling for days just because of that. So
Absolutely. Makes you do those happy little dances every time you get something.
truly. And what you said about, dealing with the amplitudes, just something top of mind that has helped me is just James Clear's processes over goals. So like if you never chase virality, it won't affect you. If you chase that, okay, I have to write for 4 hours today, that's it. It's just something that you do. You don't ask why or how. It's just your process and you have to do it.
I think I'm most
No.
happy when I am just sitting with my laptop and I'm writing a story. I couldn't care less about what is happening around in that. I think that gives me a lot of happiness, something that corporate job never gave me.
Yeah. Again, so many parallels there. My equivalent of that is this actual conversation. Like I would have this same exact conversation even if there was no camera. Like the fact that there's a camera is just a bonus for me that then I get to put it out. But like you said, it's not why I do it. The why is still just, talking to people or not experts, I should say, such as yourselves, picking their brains and seeing, how much I can learn from them. And indeed, there is so much that I've learned from you today, especially just around, jumping in this rather murky field that everybody kind of likes to poke at with a 10-foot pole. Like they want no part of it. They're like, wow, that's messy. Who wants to be a journalist, right? Like, do you even make money? Is the type of stuff that you hear. But clearly here you jumped headfirst into it. And I loved how in the beginning you said that you were driven off of your passion for two things, which is writing and solving that piece, or not liking the news interfaces or media that you were consuming. So you were just like, well, I guess if no one's going to do it, then I will. And you just jumped headfirst to
At the end of the day, if Dot is not working for anyone, at least it is working for me. There is one happy customer of Dot, which is me. At the end of every day when I write that article, I feel so much at peace. I feel so happy that, oh, now it makes more sense to me. Now I know what really is happening in Israel and Palestine. So at least for one person on earth, this problem is getting solved. So I'm just happy that way. But that doesn't pay well. So I need to make sure that I
yeah. But that's obviously
multiple.
a separate problem. Yeah, yeah. It's a problem. Or it's an optimization problem for another day. But it's been so great talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Truly has been such a pleasure picking your brain about all of these things. And, I feel like I've learned so much. And I've no doubt that any listener that, hopefully got until this point would have still taken away so much. So, really, really appreciate you taking the time. And thanks so much, Anugrah.
Thank you, Naman. Likewise.
That brings us to the end of that conversation with Anugrah Agnihotri, who is the founder of Dot. Indeed, I was blown away by how he taught himself writing, journalism, marketing, and all of the various hats that he has to wear. Thank you all for sharing these conversations with those that continue to benefit from them. If you would like to support me, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing to my YouTube channel and or leaving me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify or your favorite podcast apps. Catch you all in the next one. New episodes every Wednesday.